Hey troops, what's going on? Dit Commando here, and welcome to the channel, guys. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Canadians' change when they hear the word war video. We're going to be reacting to this one. We haven't reacted to much Canadian content, but we're hoping to get a few followers and subscribers from over Canada, our brothers in arms, and see how it goes, guys. Yeah, but I've heard a lot about this video. I've seen a few reactions on it already. Haven't watched those, but I've seen a few people doing them. So I thought, why not give this a go, guys? A little bit of background information for myself then, if you are brand new to this channel. Alright, I am a former Royal Marines Commando from the United Kingdom. I served in the British military for nearly 6 years, and I did a little bit of reservist time as well. I am actually in the process of contemplating whether or not I should go back into the reserves and, you know, wear this green beret again. But that is definitely up for debate, guys, and let me know what you think in the chat if you think that's a good idea or not. But anyway, first things first, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, guys, if you're brand new here, yeah. And if you want to become a member, hit the red button, join it. I'd be really grateful, troops. There's loads of perks involved for you guys as well, so it would be good to get you on board if you so wish. Discord, Twitch, Twitter, merchandise, Instagram, TikTok are just a few of the social media platforms that we utilize every single day, guys. Links are in the description. If you want to join any single one of those, then please dig out blind. You're more than welcome, guys. Members below me, I just want to say thank you, guys, for supporting the channel. I love gaming with you every other night that we do go live, so that's one of the perks for the tier 3s, as well as fitness and nutritional advice and plans tailored to your needs. If you want one of those, they come with the tier 3 subscription as well. But that's enough of me talking, guys. 2 minutes worth is done. Let's just get straight into this video. Canadians change when they hear the word war. Let's go.
Sorry, not sorry. While Canadians are nowadays subject to the stereotype of hockey-loving, maple syrup-chugging, overly polite potheads, their wartime...
Whoa, hang on a minute. That's a bit, that was a bit harsh, wasn't it? Potheads?
Stereotypes in the First and Second World Wars had their enemies trembling in their boots and making a hot mess in their trousers. It's as if when the Canadians hear the word war, their insatiable desire for maple syrup and Canadian beer turns into an insatiable desire for blood.
Right, so I have worked with Canadians, guys, and there was actually a few Canadian people joined the British military. I had the pleasure of meeting a few Canadians who joined the Royal Marines. A lot of them had done previous military service before and then came to the United Kingdom to join the military, guys, and they were fantastic soldiers, and yeah, they were hard as nails as well, guys. Some of the best people I've ever worked with, to be honest with you, both in the Marines and in the Army. I was on a course with the Army. There was a few Canadians there as well, and they were great. All right, they knew what they were talking about. They were professional. They were very much like the British, actually, with a hint of American, with a hint of I don't know, very like a hybrid British American soldier. All right, and I thought they were really professional in everything that they did, and like I said, hard as nails, guys.
Saying that, however, they didn't always rush enemy positions with bayonets, meat cleavers, and spiked clubs, but were some of the most well-trained and formidable soldiers on any front in any war. In this video, we're going to explore Canadian wartime reputation, keeping our scope focused on World War II and the heroic feats of individual Canadian soldiers therein. To get the puck sliding, let's move our scope quickly to the First World War, in which the Canadians laid the groundwork for their reputation as shock troopers. Mostly, the troops of the Canadian Corps were known for their savage raids on enemy trenches and their unwritten take no prisoner and kill the wounded policies. Locked in a state.
Is that true though, guys, or is this just being, you know, exaggerated for viewing pleasure? Take no prisoners and kill the wounded. I mean, that's not the Canadian soldiers that I know. I mean, obviously the First World War, that's quite a That's quite an in-depth subject to kind of learn about. But was that the case in the First World War? I'm not so sure about that, guys. There'll be a lot of tales being told, I bet. But, you know, from what I know of modern-day Canadians, they're extremely professional.
Down made in opposing trenches, the Canadians devised all manner of strategies and weaponry to flip the chessboard upside down and clean up the enemy pieces. Cutting through barbed wire, they crept upon them in the cover of night with painted faces, launching either savage, unforeshadowed raids or perking up their ears and eavesdropping on enemy plans.
So they are what they say they are. They're shock troops, all right, and they have been from then. They remind me a lot of the earlier commandos, all right. That's what we were. We were shock troops, commandos, you know, going in for raids and stuff. Very, very similar, guys.
In said raids, the Canadians gorged their bayonets with blood and made good use of improvised melee weapons, paying little attention to attempts at surrender and skewering bandaged and unarmed men just the same as men on their feet with rifles. They even concocted an alchemist's shelf of homebrew explosives, like pipe bombs and jam jars loaded with nails and gunpowder. I think it's a safe bet to say that at least one grenade is made with a maple syrup jar. There are also tales of Canadian troops using...
What's with the maple syrup? I get it, guys. Tell me if I'm wrong. The person who's made this video, the puns are intended, and they're not really making me laugh. You know, I don't know if it's because I'm quite protective of the military, but yeah, he's getting on my nerves a bit, the narrator of this. Let me know what you think in the chat, guys. Is this guy, is he pissing you off, so to speak?
Using temporary truces, like on Christmas Day, as a chance to catch their enemy with his stockings on, sending him grenades instead of Christmas ham, and bullets through the brain instead of season's greetings. Now, it could be argued that Canadians were acting out of vengeance, but couldn't that argument be used to justify most atrocities in most wars? Canadian Lieutenant R.C. Germain's letter home to his parents makes the revenge excuse about as clear as the sap from a freshly tapped maple tree.
Right, these maple jokes are really starting to grind on me, man. Get a grip, man.
Losing half of my company there, we rushed them, and they had the nerve to throw up their hands and cry "Camarade." All the camarade they got was a foot of cold steel, while I blew their brains out with my revolver. Despite being a little stab-happy with enemy soldiers, Canadian troops were known for being quite, as we contemporary folk have come to expect, polite to civilian populations.
Have you seen the size of those knives as well? They're bayonets that they're putting onto the end of the weapons. That is incredible. It's like a little sword, guys. I thought the Commando dagger, the original one, was long. Well, that's something else, man.
Before we have a look at Canadian reputation in World War II and some of its stories, it might pay to know about Canada's involvement in the war. Canada waited until the 10th of September 1939 to declare war in Germany because it didn't want to follow Britain like a Commonwealth sheep. It took Canada until the 11th of June 1940 to declare war on Italy and the 7th of December 1941 to declare it on Japan. Overall, about 10% of Canada's population fought for her and the Allies. This amounted to around 1,100,000 Canadians serving in the Canadian Army, the Royal Canadian Navy, and the Royal Canadian Air Force. Of this 1,100,000, the majority were volunteers. Canadians fought in almost every theatre of World War II, notably in the defence of the United Kingdom, the Battle of Hong Kong, the Dieppe Raid, the invasions of Sicily and Italy, the Normandy landings and the liberation of France, and the liberation of Belgium and the Netherlands. The Canadian Navy escorted Allied ships across the Atlantic and maintained a high presence in the Pacific Ocean, and pilots from the Canadian Air Force flew under the wing of the British Royal Air Force. German submarines...
Yeah, so like I presumed and mentioned earlier, the Canadians have they're very close to the United Kingdom still to this day, really. You know, in an operational sense, they've been fighting in defence of the United Kingdom for a long time, guys. All right, a long time, and that's why I think we've got such close roots over there. And I've got a lot of love for the Canadians, I have to say. I've got a lot of love for a lot of people, but Canadians are quite close to my heart in that respect, guys. Yeah, we are a close nation, Canada and the United Kingdom, and I think that's been forged through wars. All right, especially the old wars, World War One and Two, Normandy, D-Day, all of that kind of stuff, man. That was just horrendous battles that were forged with blood, but those friendships and those allies, they grew through those periods of time. All right, through those hardships, we've gained a great relationship, I think. So it's good to see, man.
Sunk Canadian naval and merchant vessels in the water of Canada and Newfoundland and attacked the loading pier at Bell Island. And the Japanese also attacked a lighthouse on Vancouver Island, though little else occurred in Canadian waters or on mainland Canada. Of the military operations in which Canadians were involved, their ferocity and inventiveness stood out in the Battle of Ortona, the Normandy landings, and the liberation of Belgium and the Netherlands. Through the medieval streets of Ortona, Italy, the Canadians and Germans engaged in brutal room-to-room, hand-to-hand fighting, with the Germans eventually having to withdraw. Here, the Canadians coined the tactic mouse holding, which is basically blowing holes in buildings to allow the passage of infantry rather than running into enemy bullets in the open. In the D-Day landings, the Canadians landed on Juno Beach, the second most resisted beachhead besides Omaha. The Canadians penetrated further inland than anyone else, coming up against some of the strongest units in the German military.
Right, I never knew that. That's quite fascinating. So the second most defended part of the beach, the Canadians went for that part, and they got further than anyone else. That's testament to their character, guys. All right, the resilience that they must have shown throughout that point, and the skill set as well. All right, I've been to the Normandy beaches, guys, and it's quite a beautiful place despite what happened there. You can almost, when you go to a place that's got a horrible history, you normally have a sense of that, and you can feel it. But certainly didn't feel it when I went there. All right, Normandy had a wonderful feeling, actually. The beaches were beautiful, and it was hard to imagine such atrocities went there. So my respect to all of these men and the women who fought in defense of their countries on Normandy and D-Day. It is an incredible part of our history, and it should never be forgotten, guys.
In Belgium and the Netherlands, the Canadians spent thousands and thousands of Canadian lives to drive the Germans back and get food to the starving civilian populations. They even shared rations with civilians and gave them blankets. Some of the most intense combat here was in the Battle of Scheldt, where the Allies fought through flooded terrain against stiff German defenses for about a month. This battle alone cost the Canadians more than 6,000 casualties. This latter triumph, particularly the part about getting food to the starving civilians, is certainly keeping with Canadian tendencies in the First World War, though the following atrocity paints a bit of a different picture. Canadian Lieutenant Colonel Frederick E. Wiggle was shot dead on approach to the town of Friseute, Germany, and a rumor spread that it was a civilian sniper from that town who shot him. Back on that revenge train, the Canadians burnt down the entire town, apparently moving its citizens onward before setting their homes on fire. It was discovered later that Wiggle was shot by German soldiers. Now, the intent of emphasizing Canadian brutality in World War I and mentioning the Friseute incident is not to take away from Canadian bravery in either world conflict. Like I said before, Canadians were some of the most well-trained and formidable soldiers on any front in any war, and I think the best way to communicate that is to share some stories of some of the most heroic Canadian soldiers in World War II. On the 14th of December 1943, Canadian Captain Paul Triquet and his company, supported by an armoured squadron, tried to cross the gully and take the Casa Berardi, a hamlet on the Orto Orsona lateral, Italy. Under heavy machine gun and mortar fire, Triquet ran around organising and inspiring what remained of his men, saying, "There are enemy in front of us, behind us, and on our flanks. There is only one safe place. That is on the objective," before charging forward and breaking through the enemy line. Triquet's company and the supporting tank squadron pushed right up to the edge of Casa Berardi, where he set up defenses and fought off a tank-supported German counterattack with whatever weapons he could find. He held the defensive perimeter against superior numbers until the rest of the battalion came in and relieved the company. Triquet's utter disregard of danger, his cheerfulness and tireless devotion inspired his men, and his tactical skill and leadership facilitated the capture at a vital point on the Ortona-Rossona lateral. On the 18th of August 1944, Canadian Major David Vivian Currie was in command of a force of tanks, self-propelled anti-tank guns and infantry. His task was to block an escape route from the Falaise pocket in the village of Solembert-sur-Divers, Normandy. Currie went in alone to scout German defences and to free the crew of 2 Allied tanks which were previously disabled. Under heavy mortar fire, he succeeded. The Germans then kept throwing counterattacks at Currie and his men until, on the 20th, one final German counterattack was thwarted by Currie, costing the Germans some 2,900 casualties.
Wow, that's a phenomenal amount of casualties, guys, alright? So they just couldn't do nothing with the Canadians, alright? So they're quite ruthless bunch of people, really. You can only do that. Professionalism is one part of it, guys, but you've got to be a natural fighter, alright? And fighting with your fists is different to fighting with your weapon systems in a soldiering sense. I know because I've done both, alright? I was an amateur boxer. I boxed for the military as well. Fighting with bare hands, completely different mindset you have to fight with weapon systems, guys, alright? You don't really go into a boxing ring with the intention of killing someone. You certainly don't think that. If you do, you're probably in the wrong sport. But you know, when you're doing your section attacks, your company level attacks, and you're practicing your fire positions and all of this type of stuff, in the back of your mind, you are very much aware that, you know, the intention of your actions is to potentially kill people in front of you. So, yeah, these people, in terms of their intent, they've definitely got to have had that thought pattern right at the front of their brain throughout this period. You know, they're just warriors through and through, like, and it's not really spoken about in terms of how the Canadians are. They're known to be quite humble, quiet people, and quite peaceful people as well. I guess at least in Civvy Street, in the military, it's obviously clearly a different kettle of fish, guys, you know.
Throughout these 3 days of intense combat, Currie displayed gallant conduct and a contempt of danger, and collected and inspired his men. One of his officers said, "We knew at one stage that it was going to be a fight to the finish, but he was so cool about it, it was impossible for us to get excited." Over the 3 days, Currie barely got an hour's sleep, and when it was over, he fell asleep standing and then crashed to the ground. Currie's courage and devotion to duty had a far-reaching effect on the successful outcome of the battle. French-Canadian Corporal Leo Major was also in Normandy, where he captured a German armoured vehicle which held secret codes and lost an eye to a phosphorus grenade. He stayed in service, saying that he looked like a pirate. However, it wasn't in Normandy where Leo earned his first Distinguished Conduct Medal, but in the Netherlands in 1945. Actually, before we go there, Leo single-handedly captured 93 Germans in the Battle of Scheldt.
Hang on a minute. 93 Germans single-handedly. What? That is incredible.
Out on a solo reconnaissance mission in 1944. He escorted all 93 of them back to his camp, where he would not accept a DCM because he considered the person awarding it to him to be incompetent. Back to 1945 and the real DCM. After breaking his back, ribs, and both ankles when the car he was in was hit by a landmine, Leo went on a recon mission with a friend in the city of Zwolle. His friend was killed, so Major continued alone, capturing a German soldier, making the soldier take him to his officer, who was in a bar, and then telling that German officer that the Canadian artillery was going to shell and kill them all. Leo then ran through the city, firing his gun and lobbing grenades, fooling the Germans into thinking the Canadian army was invading. All through the night, Major brought captured German troops back to his camp, resting in civilian houses whenever he needed to catch his breath. He then set a Gestapo HQ on fire and assaulted a Nazi SS HQ before meeting with members of the Dutch resistance and informing them that he had liberated the entire city.
This guy is insane in a good way. He's got, he looks like a pirate. He's acting ruthless. He's acting like a pirate as well. He's got balls of steel, this man. Yeah, you just don't hear about blokes like this anymore, especially in the modern day military sense. These stories are few and far between. They still happen, but few and far between. All right, they're lost in legend, most of these guys. And this guy were a guy. I might do a bit of research on him, see if there's anything, any content on him. If there is and you know about it, please drop some links in the Discord channel or just drop a comment, guys. I'd like to hear about him.
By himself. I've got to say, that last one is pure insanity. What an absolute machine. Overall, based on the available evidence at least, I think Canadians in World War II abandoned their unofficial take no prisoner and kill the wounded policies of World War I. Obviously, this is a generalization, and the Frieseuter incident certainly demonstrates that they were at least capable of unjust violence, though there is no comparing the deeds of the Canadians to, say, the Germans, the Japanese, and the Soviets. As evinced by the stories of Paul Triqueux, David Curry, and Leo Major, Canadian courage and formidability was in no short supply, and I believe modern-day Canadians should be proud of how the Canadian military cleaned up their act after World War I and made such a brave and significant contribution to an Allied victory in the Second World War. Anyways, guys, make sure you let me know your thoughts.
Right then, so that was Canadians change when they hear the word war. Right, so the title is not deceiving, but it wasn't the video that I thought it was going to be. Actually, I thought we were going to explain what that change was. All right, but it was a great video. Information wise on how they performed within World War One mainly, but yeah, I didn't really get an explanation of how they change when they hear the word war. I get it, it's just a bit clickbaity title, but what I took from that, Canadians are, as I already knew, professional. I learned that they're a lot more ballsy than I first thought in terms of how they engage in a wartime situation. They're quite ruthless in terms of their stance on things, okay? I wonder if that's changed much. I'm guessing it'll have had to have changed as the times go on, alright? You can't go around doing some of the things that they were getting up to back in the day, guys. But, that comes with the environment, I think. You just got to look at Canada. It's some of the most harshest environments on the planet, alright? Some of the hardest landscapes to kind of operate and live on, so I can only imagine that their training in these environments makes them real tough soldiers indeed, okay? It's how us in the British military have forged our toughness, okay? We might not have the money, we might not have the best of kit, but you try and operate on Dartmoor or Woodbury Common or Scotland or Wales, where we regularly operate, and you'll find yourself questioning your actual professionalism a lot more than you would in the comforts of a warm weather environment, okay? When we went to warm weather environments, it was an absolute gift because we didn't have to worry about being cold, wet, miserable, which is 99% of the time if you're operating or you're training in the areas that we train in, and it's exactly the same for the Canadians, and I can understand that's how they get their robustness from, okay? Yeah, most definitely. But if you like the video, guys, like, share, subscribe, become a member if you want to support or sponsor the channel. Discord, Twitch, Twitter, merchandise, Instagram, TikTok is all below for you guys to take heed of. We're also going live at some point on our new gaming channel. Link is below for that. We are separating our gaming content now, and that channel's going pretty well so far. Dit Gaming is what you search for, or just click in the link below, guys, and show some support for my second channel. And that's it really, troops. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Bye bye.